No matter how much money's on the table, how much pressure I'm under, or how good or bad my last venture performed, I will always wait for the best deal before I commit.
I want to thank Jimmy Iovine and the entire Interscope staff, Eminem, the Shady Records staff, Dr. Dre, the Aftermath staff, Yvette Gill. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all, man. I want to thank me.
The best example of this is my decision to sign with Eminem's Shady Records and Interscope. It's a decision, in retrospect, that seems like a no-brainer, a layup that anyone could have made. Maybe, but I promise you that the decision wasn't so obvious at the time. A lot of people, including some very respected names in the music business, thought I was crazy for turning down some of the other deals I had been offered first. To understand why they felt that way, let's consider the context. My first record deal was with Jam Master Jay's JMJ Records, which I signed when I was around 21 years old. Jay is the guy who taught me how to actually put together a song. Before I met him, I was just spitting over beats without any direction. Jay groomed me. He slowed me down and showed me how to incorporate melody and structure into a fully fleshed out hit song. Those were critical skills for me to develop, but at the end of the day, JMJ wasn't a real label. It was more of a production company. Jay had a studio where he recorded artists, and sadly, where he would later be murdered. Once he thought an artist was polished enough, he would bring their music to an actual label like Atlantic or Def Jam and pitch to their A&R department. If the label was into the music, Jay would sign a deal for JMJ. Then in theory, the artist would get paid out of Jay's deal. I wasn't aware at first that that's how it worked. I thought once I'd signed to JMJ, I officially made it. Once I realized J&J wasn't going to put my records out directly, I said, nah, this ain't it, and asked for an exit. Jay didn't want to let me go scot-free, and in the end, I had to pay him $50,000 to get out of my contract. After that, I hooked up with a production duo, the Trackmasters, and through them was able to do a real deal with Columbia Records. Before the album could come out, I got shot. As the rumors began to spread about what was behind the shooting, Columbia panicked and dropped me. On top of being shot, I'd already forced my way out of one deal and been dropped by a major label. Most people in the industry didn't think I was worth the headache.
Do you think you're dead at that point when you take 9 bullets? Do you go, oh, this is it, I'm checking out?
Well, you know, it's a life-threatening situation. It's just not. I've seen people going to the hospital under circumstances that were way less intense and not come out.
Yeah, it's a miracle you live.
The first deal I got offered was from Universal. They said they wanted me, but when I had a lawyer review their contract, I learned the actual deal they were offering was a joint venture with $1.3 million for a solo album and a G-Unit project. I saw it for what it was, a way for them to work with me while hedging their bets. I wasn't looking to partner with anyone who wasn't prepared to go all the way in with me. I passed on Universal. Then a guy named 3H from Capitol Records reached out. He flew me out to LA my first trip to the West Coast. When I got there, I was surprised to see he was this little white kid. It seemed crazy to me that he already had so much juice. But I thought it was ill he had already maneuvered himself into this position of power. He was hungry and cocky, not unlike myself. I was very tempted to work with him. Then his boss at Capitol got cold feet. He told Triple H I was too scary and that he didn't want bodyguards at his house. He wasn't incorrect. There was a menacing aura around me at the time, and bodyguards follow along everywhere I went. I wasn't going to try to convince someone who couldn't see my value. As much as I liked Triple H, I knew that Capitol wasn't the right situation either. At the time, I was represented by Violator. Chris was my manager and someone I leaned on for advice. He supported me when I didn't take those deals, but I could tell it wasn't easy for him. Chris had to worry if I was ever going to give him a return on his investment in me. Yes, I had the streets buzzing through my mixtapes, but I had a lot of baggage too. The safe move would have been to take one of those deals and finally get my debut album out. Things got even more complicated when Todd Moskowitz, who was working with Chris at Violator, lined up a deal for me at J Records. Todd said it was the perfect situation. I'd be working with the industry legend Clive Davis, which would calm a lot of folks' fears about me. Todd pushed hard for me to sign with J Records. At almost the same time Todd was making his push, I got word that Eminem was interested in signing me to Shady Records, his imprint on Interscope.
Okay, so can you guys talk a little bit about how, Dre and M, can you talk a little bit about 50 and how you guys, when you first heard him, what you thought, and how you guys hooked up together?
I'll take credit for that.
You should.
Semi-credit. I heard it. I brought it to Dre. Dre heard it. He was sold. And basically we said, let's do a joint venture. Like, me and you get involved.
Yeah, this is perfect. I'm sitting like 50-50 on 50. Like,
Yeah.
cut down a minute, break it in half.
That's it. And Dre, once I played it for Dre, Dre was sold on it. It's like the first time I heard it, and we did it.
Whoa. Mr. Controversy, Eminem.
I knew right away that was the right situation. The Marshall Mathers LP had just sold 22 million. M was the reason so many white fans were embracing hip-hop culture. It was the type of association you might get access to only once in a lifetime, if you're fortunate. I was faced with a difficult decision. Today, people believed I would have succeeded no matter what label I signed with. Go in the chat rooms and message boards, and you'll even see fans claiming things like 50 was so hot back then. He could have signed with Koch and still sold all them records. Yeah, I was hot. But even if my ego would like to believe otherwise, my career wouldn't have had anywhere near the same trajectory had I signed anywhere other than Interscope. Not Koch, not Universal, not J Records. It wasn't just Eminem's presence either. Interscope gave me access to Dr. Dre, one of the greatest producers of all time. There was no other team out there that could match the power of that tag team. I knew I had been groomed for the moment by all my other failures and misses. When that door opened, even just a crack, no one had to tell me twice to walk through it. Before I could take the step, though, Todd Moskowitz had to get out of the way. The J Records deal would mean money for Violator. The Eminem deal wouldn't. Todd refused to let it go. So some of my crew and I had to go to Violator to discuss the situation. Todd came on very aggressively, explaining that we were contractually obligated to sign his deal. I looked at Chris for help, but he shrugged his shoulders like there was nothing he could do. He was caught between what was best for his artist and what Todd thought was best for his company. It was a surreal situation, listening to this guy in a sports jacket and dress shoes, trying to convince me I should pass up on the opportunity of a lifetime to sign what I knew was a lesser deal. What Todd was saying didn't sit right with me or my people. We expressed our concerns. We might have been a little aggressive in articulating them. At one point, I remember Todd running out of his office and down the stairs towards the street, his dress shoes clicking and clacking on the steps the whole way down. Suffice it to say, that was the last of any talk about me signing to J Records.
The one Grammy I have is for Crack a Bottle. I couldn't even have that without him. And that's why I have so much value for him, not just in my career, just in my life, because he's a guy that, one of my best friends, because I can trust that he's going to be honest with his constructive criticism when it's time to listen to the music before it goes out. He's the only person that did things that I wanted to do.